hotties, welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. And today we're back to recap week 2 of the NFL season. Watched Sunday night, Chicago, Houston, great game. Watched Thursday night, Buffalo. Theo's like, well, a lot of good defensive performances. We'll say that much. Stroud looked awesome. Watched Thursday night, Bills, Dolphins. We'll talk about that off rip. Of course, we watched our teams play, Browns, Packers, Panthers. But before we get into all the wonderful week 2 action, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing on this wonderful Sunday night?
I'm doing pretty well. You guys are going to have to carry me today because I was driving home from a wedding in Kansas, a little 8 or 9 hour drive for me today. So I caught most of the game action on the radio equivalent of Red Zone, where it was just taking me from commentary team to commentary team when they were like about to score. That's cool. It was cool, but it makes me a little bit weak, I think, on the analyzing side, unless you want to hear basically just a rerun of the call that I heard.
I think that's perfectly fine. I've got plenty to say today. Although I do want to bring up, before we get into anything else, a little college football. Miami of Ohio defeated this weekend by the good old Cincinnati Bearcats. Corey Kiner, you will be playing on Sundays. Number 15 for the Redhawks, he also might be playing on Sundays. Or Cincinnati might not be as good as they once were. One of the two.
Miami does have a linebacker who's really nice. I don't know.
Not nice enough.
But
yeah. Not nice enough. And I know you're checking your phone every hour to see if Ritter is the new quarterback for the Dolphins.
It's ridiculous at this point. Teams want to lose, you have to assume, if Ritter can't make a roster.
32-person
I saw
just in
that.
case.
Oh man, I still have Matt Corral on my 32-person team, just in case.
Just in case he wins.
I picked up Andy Dalton.
CFL.
So,
ooh.
That's about how I'm feeling about a certain blue team from Carolina. We won't name names.
Blue team.
The Tar.
It's looking
really
bleak,
irritates
dude.
me about the Miami Cincy game.
What?
2 things. First of all, that's the first time they've played at Jaeger since like 2017. And it might be the last time they ever play against each other because Cincy like doesn't want to anymore.
True. And we got our final dub. We righted the wrong of last year.
The series was tied going into that game.
No, you're kidding. I didn't even know that. Oh, that's awesome.
Last point
Brought the
wins.
bell back and then sorry, dude. Hate to do it to you, but
for last point wins. So yeah, sorry that you guys didn't know that. I say we like I play for the Bearcats, but I'm on Matt's side if they just quit and
Theo's an
left it at
honorary
that.
Bearcat.
you're in the red and black. We're counting you.
Although aren't the Miami
I was about to
Redhawks
say we're
also,
like the same colors. Dude.
also red and black?
But we know what you mean.
I'm siding with the victor. To the victor goes the spoils.
The Theo
and
Ash.
I am the spoils. So.
To the victor goes the Theo. You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're really a heat seeker, try spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. I dare ya. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's locations. What is up, hotties? How would you like to get an extra $500? Well, then head on over to bluewirepods.com/survey and complete the Blue Wire audience survey about you and your podcast listening habits for a chance to win a $500 gift card. This survey will help create a better advertising experience for audiences and in turn, of course, help this show. That's bluewirepods.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer some simple questions for a chance to win $500. Make sure to read the full terms and disclaimer, plus complete the survey for a chance to win. Again, that's bluewirepods.com/survey. The link is also, of course, going to be in the description of this episode. We got to watch some football today. We also got to watch some football on Thursday, and I think we should start with the Thursday game, Bills and Dolphins, which this game kind of sucks to talk about because you can't talk about it without bringing up Tua and his injury situation, which I talked about on TikTok briefly. He has one of the worst injury track records that I've ever seen of any player ever, and it's horrifying that he's even made it this far because it's like he's had hip surgery, he's had hand surgery on his throwing hand, multiple knee strains, quad strains, high ankle sprains. He's had other fractures in his hand, a fractured rib, and now I think it's 4 concussions since 2022, 3 of which were in the same season.
Yeah.
It's looking very rough. And I think we're all in the same boat when we think he should probably call it, but it's hard to say what he actually will do.
I think the Dolphins should call it, honestly. I know Mike McDaniel came out and gave that press conference after that game. I did not like what he said, and I know that he was saying that, like, oh, it's Tua's decision. He should be able to do whatever he wants. It's his decision. If you care about him at all, don't speculate. And at this point, it's like, I don't know, man. I think the media is going to speculate about an NFL player's career, okay? That's kind of what everybody's job is. And I think that it's kind of obvious what the problem is, and that is, like, Tua can't really withstand the physicality of the sport. It's a brutal sport, and he's had too many of these injuries. And like, why, as the Dolphin, like, I would not blame Tua if he wants to come back and lead the Dolphins to a playoff win, which they haven't done in 24 years or something like that, and reach the Super Bowl and achieve all the goals that he has set up for himself. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if he wants to come back and do that regardless of the risk. But there's also if he wants to do that, I think at some point, if you're the Dolphins, it's like, is that going to, first of all, like, is that going to happen with Tua as a player? And second of all, can he survive it? Like, I don't know what the answer to either of those two are.
I think there's 2 things you have to look at. The first being obviously to his health and well-being. And I think there needs to be a very serious conversation that needs to happen between him and someone that's very close to him. Needs to, like, pull him aside and say, dude, like, is it worth it? The other side is like a pure football perspective where even if he comes back, like, we've already seen this Dolphins offense has become somewhat restricted by how quickly they get the ball out and how sometimes so far removed Tua can be from the offense. Imagine a much more extreme version of that, where the offense is now the top priority is protect Tua at all costs, and at the cost of now having a good offense. And is that worth it too? So, like, obviously his health is important, but yeah, if you're the Dolphins, you have to think, like, do you want to be calling plays scared?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly right. And I think, I mean, you got to do it already, like you said, Blaiden, because he's not good under pressure. Like that everything leading up to that made that very clear. Like the pick where he tried to kind of throw off his back foot just out of bounds and couldn't reach it there. Like, he's not really someone who can make people miss and scramble. Like, when he gets under pressure, it's a struggle for him. And in every single big game, it has cost the Dolphins dearly in the McDaniel era, pretty much. And now it's like, on top of that, it's like he struggles with, like, he can't get hit. Like, he actually cannot get hit. So, like, the two of those things I don't know. I agree with you, Blaiden, that this offense seems to be going at a pace that is too frantic. And if he came back, you'd have to even ratchet it up probably like somehow a notch. I don't think you could.
Right.
But Matt, what are you thinking?
Well, I think it's not even really speculation about what happens to somebody who repeatedly gets concussions. We know for a fact that it messes with your brain and it gives you CTA, and it sucks for a long time. It's not worth it. If I were to, it's tough because it's hard to imagine the amount of work that goes in for a guy like that to get where he is now. And the Dolphins are certainly going to be way worse without him. So it's not an easy decision or an easy call to make. But if it was one, I mean, you know exactly what you would do. And there are more important things in life. Tua has already accomplished, he's become a quarterback who hit a serious second contract. He won a national title with Alabama. I mean, there's just not many people who ever reach those heights. It sucks to see it cut early. But man, there's just no way that he could play a full career from here on out without getting more concussions. I just don't think it's reasonable to expect that. And it's terrible. Like, as a Panthers fan, I think about Luke Kuechly, of course, who was, in his prime when he had to step away. But it was just one too many times. It wasn't that he wasn't good enough. It wasn't that, he couldn't hang or that he wasn't even like able to deal with the physicality of the league. He was. It's just, I think some guys are maybe a little bit more prone to concussions than other. And, I remember Kuechly getting carted off against the Saints on maybe Monday or Thursday night, the final time, and being like, that's probably it. For Tua, I agree. It's really, really tough to move around or to work around his concussions. Maybe they feel like they can do it a little bit more because he's a quarterback as opposed to a linebacker. But the idea is that Tua would play like another 10 years, right? I mean, that's sort of the thought here. No way. And you'd be giving up like those competitive plays too. Like you wouldn't want him to, it would be a sacrifice, right? Like I just think it would make him,
yeah, man.
I just think it would be such an untenable situation where it's like, yeah, Matt, like open and shut case. He's had too many concussions, like you say, Matt. What the resulting effects on the field and like what the Dolphins offense look like. I shouldn't even really make a point about it because it really does start and end with that. So I think why would the Dolphins got to green light him coming back? They're the ones who get us choose who to start and stuff, and I feel like it's not just to his decision, and he shouldn't have to make that. I absolutely agree. I think they should. You can talk about it from an on the field perspective too. I think that's perfectly fine. But I do think with it's like it's totally not worth it. I mean, the things that can do to people really, really suck. I look at this situation right now, and if we're talking about where the Dolphins go from here, I can't help but think them not having like one of maybe the 10 best backup quarterbacks in the league is just a total blunder. The idea that they don't have like a Tyrod or I don't know, like an Andy Dalton. Yeah, that's who came to mind. I don't mean to be biased towards my backup quarterback, but not to go out and be aggressive getting a guy like that when you knew that your backup quarterback situation was disastrously bad and you knew that your quarterback was particularly injury prone is just nonsensical. Like, I don't know. It makes no sense, especially when your offense really revolves around your two top receivers and can probably keep going if somebody can come in there and hold down the fort. I mean, I think if they had a Dalton level guy, I would still see them as maybe a playoff team. I think that they could easily rally back. Now, with Skylar Thompson, we've seen this before and it doesn't go well. We all picked them to win this division. We all really believed in the defense, and we thought the weapons were there. As it stands right now, I'm incredibly nervous. Maybe Tua comes back and finishes the season against, maybe the best thinking there. And I think Tua can play better than he did tonight. We've seen it before. Maybe he doesn't do good when he's pressured. Maybe they struggle in big games, but that doesn't stop them from, having a ceiling of 11, 12 wins. But right now they're down to the Bills. They're down without Tua.
I really wish they had a better backup plan. I'm not feeling great about them.
I will say, I think part of, I don't know if it's necessarily the reason, but I think part of why you see them not go out and get a backup and part of why you see them struggle when a backup is in is because of the way they run their offense. Like, so much of it is based around Tua's timing with their receivers. And you throw in a guy that has none of that timing, and it's just it's now a completely different offense that they just like don't practice with. And so I don't know, like Tyrod obviously better quarterback than Skylar Thompson. Dalton obviously better quarterback than Skylar Thompson. I do have to wonder how much of a difference it would make having just another quarterback in there that doesn't have any of the timing, because they just don't. It's just completely different.
I don't disagree with that, but I will say that this has been a problem that we've known about for years. And they could have worked anybody in as a backup who has some timing with everybody else, right? The fact that it's been Skylar Thompson who they've gone with, who just hasn't looked good when they've put him out there in what is frankly like a really good situation that tries to work around, dealing with pressure and gives you great weapons. It's a disaster. And I honestly think you get the right veteran in there and they could probably adjust quickly. I would take that odds. I don't disagree. Like, a lot of it is the timing. And you're not going to have somebody come in and just replace Tua. Like, if Andy Dalton comes in there, it's not going to be as good as Tua. It's not going to be.
No.
I think what Tua does well, he does really well, even if he has some pretty severe limitations. But there's a big difference between going out there with a backup quarterback that can, go on one of those Linsanity runs while he needs to, and a backup quarterback who can as well, because we've seen anybody do it, but you definitely feel like there's worse odds of.
Yeah.
As far as the rest of the game goes, I think in general, the Bills' defensive line looks really strong. Their defense, I just feel like, has a very high floor because of how much pressure that they can get. And Josh Allen is just so good. He's easily the second best quarterback in the NFL. We have had him there forever, but I'm starting to lean. The question was raised the other day. I don't know if it was you guys. I don't know if it was. I heard it on Twitter. Is Allen closer to Mahomes, or is the third quarterback closer to Allen? I think Allen might be closer to Mahomes. I think he's that good. This Bills team, you can't bet against him when they have him. You just can't.
No, and they have a really good formula. They play the two high shells on the defensive end, on the defensive side of things. They always have that nickel in there, and they encourage teams to run the ball. And teams have been obliging. The Cardinals, they wanted to keep the ball on the ground. The Dolphins really leaned on that running game, and it's just that versus Allen isn't that good when the front is as good as it is, and you've got guys that are just wrecking shop up there. Greg Rousseau has been an absolute monster for them these first 2 weeks. Von Miller looks back. If you run downhill, you have to deal with Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver, and then they just spawn good linebackers, man. Like, I thought Spector coming in that Dolphins game played amazing, like really scraping laterally over the top of everything, not getting caught up in the guards, going too far downhill, dealing with the eye candy, making tackles. And then everybody was just setting a really wide edge and making sure they couldn't get to the perimeter. 2 games in a row now, the Dolphins have tried it, and the defenses have been ready. The Jaguars did a great job week 1, and then the Bills did a great job again. I think those can be 2 good defenses, but if you're the Dolphins, you need to slice through those. You never really have. It feels like it always gets bogged down in these primetime games.
It was also, I mean, Allen had some nice plays. I thought the Bills ran the ball decently, but really what this one came down to is just some disaster turnovers from Miami that in a rematch maybe probably wouldn't all go. You know how that goes. But they created a lot of havoc. Well, not to take away from it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The Bills' defense is creating a lot of havoc.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm never doubting Sean McDermott ever again. because this man just keeps putting together elite defenses year in, year out, no matter who's out there. Starting to think that Poyer and Hyde was actually just a bunch of McDermott. They're just products of McDermott's great defensive scheme at this point. It's just everything they do is good. Like you said, Theo, they turn out great linebackers. The defensive line looks absolutely amazing. And the secondary's been like all right for what it is.
Yeah.
So
this is all without Milano, who will come back at some point. I mean, starting 2-0 is just huge for Buffalo.
Yeah. It's huge. It's huge. So, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have counted them out. We were all a little bit lower on them, Matt. I think you at least had them making the playoffs, though.
Yeah. Have to roll with Buffalo. They're still deep down. They're still Panthers coded. They're still 2015 Panthers coded.
2015. See, I was worried they would start to be a little bit too Panthers coded as the years wear on way, but it looks like
it's a very fair concern. I was thinking the same thing.
Panthers coded team loses.
Yeah, as long as Josh Allen's shoulder is all right, they should be more 2015 pilled.
Yeah.
You got a pass rush, you got a quarterback. The weapons are looking pretty good so far. You can't really complain.
James Cook looks great too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do we want to move on?
I don't see why not. Let's think. I know one of the games that we probably all watched in the 1 o'clock window was Raiders Ravens.
I didn't catch as much of that one.
Really? Okay. There was a point in this game where I felt like the Ravens like had it in the bag and they might start running away. I think it was 23-10 in the fourth quarter. I'm like, all right, this game's over. I switch it off and I check my phone later. It's 26-23. Raiders have the ball. I'm like, I'm sorry, did I miss a chapter? What happened here? Apparently Devontae Adams went and had himself a field day against these Ravens DBs. And on top of that, it looked like the Raiders were getting a lot of pressure, which goes back to the point we had after week one. These concerns with the Ravens offensive line continue to show themselves.
They're just not athletic enough. Falele is not athletic enough. He can't reach people at the second level. They ran that stunt with Max Crosby right by him when the Ravens had a chance to put the game away. What's he going to do against Max Crosby? He can't move his feet. So you're getting killed there. Your right tackle's not good. Your left guard's not good. Yeah, I mean, they would try to run power early in the game, gap scheme. And these pullers would just get beaten to the spot. Like Max Crosby was untouched in the backfield when they were running these gap scheme plays. So, yeah, the line just, I wanted to give the Ravens credit because they are kind of a factory. They were so good last year that I thought they had a lot of margin for error where they could still compete with the Chiefs and like beat the Raiders week 2. But I guess not because they're flawed on offense because of that line. And Lamar missed another big deep ball, and I thought he made some plays, like didn't look horrible today. There was a point where like it seemed like they gained their footing in the second half, like you said, Blaiden, and were about to run away with it after missing some opportunities and only having 9 points.
Yeah. The run game started to get going.
Yeah, same as deal with the Raiders had this happen last week where they started playing the run really heavy downhill, but as it wore on, the Chargers started to take a hold. The same thing was happening with the Ravens this week. Yeah. 2 our teams is killing me tonight. But then, I don't know. You take it away, Blaiden. I think you were right about Adams. I mean, it started to stall again, and then he just completely took over.
I guess he just locked in. I don't know, man. He made a plethora of just awesome catches, and they were some good throws by Minshew. Give him some credit where it's due. But yeah, I think it was just Adams just went on a tear and just decided that he was going to win this game single-handedly if he had to. Yeah,
the Raiders on offense had a very up and down game. I mean, I think at halftime it was fair to wonder if we were going to see Minshew in the second half. I mean, the Raiders were getting their ass kicked.
They looked horrible. They were. Minshew I saw. What was it? I think it was Damian Lillard was tweeting about like how bad this Raiders team was at halftime, and then they won.
Yeah, no, and Minshew, I appreciated that they kept dropping back with him because this group of weapons is too good to not. And in the first half, Minshew's, I thought, lack of arm talent really showed up on that pick. He was trying to hit a deep corner, just didn't put enough on it, didn't get it high enough, and Marlon Humphrey underneath was easily able to pick it off. Mm-hmm. There was another shot to Adams that he underthrew, and a touchdown turned into a fourth down failure. So it was like he was stinking it up, but they kept dropping back, and eventually, like, there were enough big plays to Bowers, who looked insane. Mm-hmm. And
I saw Bowers had a big game. Yeah, I'm excited about him. I want to go back and watch what he did.
He was great. He was routing people up, and the Ravens should have never have lost this game because they were wanting to get into the 3-4, but that meant putting number 40 back on the field, Malik Harrison, who was the liability from the first game. They got him out of the
This is your new
off-ball
Tillery,
spot.
man.
He is. Well, every time he's out there, it's a big play for the offense. So they would get in 12 personnel with Mayer and Bowers, which is how the Raiders want to live. And initially, the Ravens wanted to match that with their 3-4 bear front. But when they brought in that extra outside linebacker, they would bring in Williams to set the edge this time, which allegedly he's good at. But then they would just throw it, and he would drop back in coverage as the 3-4 outside linebacker, and then they just throw it to him, and he'd miss the tackle in the flat. So they couldn't play. They just can't put him on the field because he gets targeted. So they couldn't play 3-4 against the 12 personnel anymore. So they had to go to their even stuff, and they were playing too high because of Adams and Bowers and all the weapons and stuff. So you would really, and they stopped the run perfectly. The Raiders did not do anything on the ground. So that should be a formula where it's okay, we win. We can stop 12 personnel by playing nickel even fronts.
Well, yeah,
but
you can run nickel and you have Kyle Hamilton out there, man. It's great.
But the weapons just went crazy was the problem. Bowers and Adams just beat everybody up. Outbreakers were still there for Adams. Bowers Minshew hit him a few nice times between the zone coverage, and he turned up field, and those two just went beast mode, and yeah.
And the Ravens continue in their offensive line struggles, and they continue to not be able to really stretch the field vertically. Mm-hmm. And so it's you get into those situations where you need to march down the field, and you kind of can't because they're just it's not something that we have to worry about is the vertical passing attack. Mm-hmm. So I think it's reasonable to be concerned about Baltimore at this point. To what capacity, I don't know. But yeah, they're 0-2, and their struggles or their flaws seem very apparent.
I think I'm not too worried because the Bengals are 0-2 as well, and it's I do believe it's possible for the Ravens to zoom past the Steelers and Browns. So if the Bengals were 2-0, I would be extremely
concerned. The Bengals are notorious
concerned.
for starting slow. The Ravens are notorious for starting hot.
Yeah. I mean, it's not
hot?
good, but we'll see. I'm not as panicked about them as I am about the Bears. I'm at a medium panic level. I guess
we'll talk about the Bears a little bit later. What is up, hotties? You know that when it comes to NFL football, Stay Hot has you covered. But who do you turn to when you need to make smart financial decisions? If your answer is our sponsor, NerdWallet, then you're absolutely right. And if it's not, then allow me to change your mind, because not only have they spent thousands of hours researching and reviewing over 1,300 financial products, but they have the tools you need to make smarter financial decisions. Looking for a credit card? Go beyond the basic comparisons. Filter for features that matter to you and read in-depth reviews. Ready to choose a high-yield savings account? Get access to exclusive deals and compare rates, bonuses, and more. House hunting? View today's top mortgage rates for your new home sweet home. So while Stay Hot is your go-to resource for NFL football, make the Nerds your go-to resource for smart financial decisions. Head to nerdwallet.com/learn more. NerdWallet. Finance smarter. Disclaimer, NerdWallet Invalid Compare Inc. NMLS 1617539. You know, there's just something magical about being at a live event, whether it's the energy of a packed stadium, the thrill of a concert, or the laughter at a comedy show. There's truly nothing like it. I remember catching a game last year, one of those last-minute decisions where everything just fell into place. The roar of the crowd, the buzz in the air. It's an experience you just can't replicate anywhere else. And I'm really looking forward to making even more memories this year. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about Game Time, the app that's been a game changer for me. They've had this new feature called Game Time Picks, and trust me, it's a lifesaver. It takes all the hassle out of finding tickets by showing you the best deals on the best seats. So no more endless scrolling or second guessing. Just the other day, I was looking for tickets to an upcoming concert, one I've been dying to see, and I decided to check out Game Time Picks, and let me tell you, the deals they had were unreal. I found a super deal that was just too good to pass up, and within minutes, I had my seats locked in. The app even let me preview the view from my seats before I bought them, so I knew exactly what to expect. But what really impressed me was with how easy the whole process was. The app is super intuitive, and with features like all-in pricing, there were no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you get. Plus, with their lowest price guarantee, I knew I was getting the best possible deal. And if anything happened, like the event got canceled, they got you covered with their flexible customer service policy. So if you're anything like me and you want to take the guesswork out of buying tickets, you've got to check out Game Time. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code BLAIDENK for $20 off your first purchase. That's, of course, BLAIDENK for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Matt, do you want to give a quick few words about the Panthers, and I'll give a quick few words about the Browns just to get them out of the way?
Sure, because I did watch them. If they keep Bryson, I don't know if they're winning a game. I mean, it is worse than any team I've ever watched in the NFL. I mean, really, really, truly. They cannot throw the ball down the field at all. Bryce just won't do it. I think he had 20-something attempts for 84 yards. Almost everything is just a check down to him. He just sits in there, and I don't think he wants to push it down the field. Now, to be fair, a lot of times you can't see what the receivers are doing because they won't give us the Madden angle, so we got to go back and see the All-22 and see exactly what went down on every single play. But I can tell you, I think he maybe had one target past 10 yards. Maybe. And I think that might have been the interception that he threw this game. But for the most part, honestly, the offensive line held up today perfectly fine. Not perfectly, I guess, but I thought it was good enough. And Bryce just typically stands in there and dumps it down or rolls out, but is working so hard to get out that he can't see down the field. There's a few times where maybe he gets out and he can try to create something, but he just misses the throw. And part of me believes like maybe if he can just like hit those, things could be a little bit better. But their offense is just unimaginably bad right now. And when you pair that with a rushing defense that just doesn't have any hope of stopping anybody, just can't win. I mean, the Chargers aren't exactly trying to hide what they want to do. They'll get up there with, some of the biggest personnels that any team, will run, and they'll put a fullback back there, and then Harbaugh is doing his whole, guess what, we want to run the ball, we want to establish a run, and he hired Greg Roman, and they ran 45 times today, and they averaged 5 yards a carry. And honestly, dude, I think Gus Edwards kind of stinks. And if it wasn't for him, dude, Dobbins was getting 7 yards a carry. Who is ridiculous, the fact that he's back. So you pair those two things together. The fact that the Panthers are easily the worst passing offense in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's maybe the Broncos are there with them, but they're easily up there. And with the fact that their defense is just not going to be able to stop anybody from running, I don't think. I don't know where the victory comes from. I really, really don't. And the thing is that the 26-3 score, it doesn't even really do justice to how bad this was. I mean, the Chargers threw a bad interception and had a bad fumble, and they missed an extra point. This wasn't their best game, and they settled for a bunch of field. This wasn't their best game at all. Mm-hmm. But it just doesn't matter. You don't even need to come like half prepared for Carolina. I think we will see Dalton by the end of the year. If this doesn't turn around like quickly, it could be Dalton by week 6 or 7.
I bet Chargers alternate spread minus 13.5.
I did 9.5.
I did not.
I said. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. And J.C. Horn got cooked by Quentin Johnston. Just 1-on-1. Just lost.
Yeah, that was bad.
It's bleak, man. So that's all I've got to say. I also like what the Chargers are building, but
yeah, getting cooked by
don't.
Quentin Johnston in the big 2024 is.
He had 2
would set me
touchdowns.
off. I might break a TV if that happened to my team.
Yeah, the fact that I put in that bet that the Chargers would score 2 more touchdowns than the Panthers and just was unfazed. I know I was listening to the radio, right? And they would chime in with something that happened. And of course they would chime in with what usually happens with the Chargers. Herbert breaks a tackle. What a throw. His receiver fumbles at third down, erasing a massive play. That's what I heard when they would cut to the Chargers game, and I wasn't even stressed about it. I'm like, they'll get 2 touchdowns on the Panthers. It's okay. I didn't hear anything about it after that fumble thing. I don't even think they cut back to the game because it was so non-competitive, and they wanted to focus on the Commanders in the red zone the whole time instead, kicking field goals. So, you're right. Bryce Young had 2 throws over 10 yards in this game. One was intercepted, one was incomplete. So your intuition was not too far off, Matt.
And I think some of his deeper throws that he actually completed this game were just on 3rd and long, where the Chargers are just giving 3rd and super long. But what maybe the most frustrating part about it is 3rd and 9 just will not throw past the sticks. Just won't do it. Just is going to check it down to Chuba Hubbard or whoever, to Tommy Trimble or whoever, and it's going to be 4th and 3 every time. And I just don't know how they could possibly sustain a drive that way. I don't know how they're supposed to go and straight up beat a team. And here's the thing, they have a very winnable schedule. They play the Raiders next week, hypothetically, although the Raiders look better than Carolina. I mean, they just got to win.
They got a defense. I mean, they got
Bryce Young against pressure, dude. It's
right.
Over.
They play the Commanders. They play the Giants. They play the Broncos. They've got the games on their schedule. But how they get one with Bryce in there playing like this, I have no idea.
Ijero Ivero on Bo Nix. Do you have something special for me?
And this is the thing.
All I'm asking you is for one.
He did come back, and he did get an interception, and also the play before he totally forced a fumble and got screwed by evil football move nonsense. But
was that the play when Herbert manufactured a throw out of nothing?
Probably.
Yes. I don't know.
If it was a Chargers,
I don't remember if it was
snap,
out of
yes.
Herbert. All Herbert did was check it down over the middle. All he did was just attack the Panthers' slow ass linebackers. I mean, they just sit and he'd hit the same thing 10 times because they suck, dude.
He's Tom Brady.
Oh, brother.
He's Tom Brady, but his arm is 10x.
Yeah, and he can run.
So, I mean, again, I just feel like I don't want to go 0-17. I really, really do not want this team to do that,
He'd
dude.
be the first team
I really want
to lose 17 games in an NFL season.
How did Joe Alt look? Stop moaning and groaning and give us the alt-right report here.
I'll be real with you, dude. I was watching multiple games, and there was a point where it's brain fog when I'm looking at the screen when it's Panthers Chargers. But dude, who do you think Joe Alt would lose to on Carolina, man? What do you think is going on, bro? I think Herbert was sacked a couple of times, but they were both very, very he was sacked one time for 0 yards. Yeah. I mean, Alt did not get beat. Every time
is that even
there was
a sack?
it's counted as one. So maybe it's like for minus half a yard. You know how it goes. But like, no, I think Alt looked perfectly fine. And here's the thing. I was waiting and watching because I literally, I was like, maybe Alt will screw up and I can at least text Theo and be like, your boy just got beat by DJ Johnson, by the way, pack it up. But it didn't happen.
No, him and Slater. No.
So
okay,
instead I decided we're pushing the J.K. Dobbins for comeback player of the year narrative.
Hey,
It's there.
it's there.
It's in there.
But that's all I got to say.
So from what I understood from the radio, it was a vintage Browns defensive performance.
Oh, dude, the defensive line looked so good. It was so good. They got pressure on like every snap. It was awesome. Yeah, it was a really good defensive performance by the Browns. That cannot be overstated. I was really worried we were going to lose this game because the offense honestly wasn't like that much better than it was a week ago against Dallas. Jacksonville's defense is good. It's not Dallas.
I mean, you had Deshaun Watson. Like, yeah, we know.
Yeah, and you know, here's the thing, right? Deshaun Watson didn't look like the worst quarterback on the planet this week, and a lot of Browns fans took that as a win. They're like, "See, Watson's back. He's getting right this week." Dude, again, $230 million. The standard can't be that he like almost looks like an average quarterback. The standard has to be he has to be like a top 10 caliber guy at least. So until we see that, I'm not.
Let me
fine.
box score watch here.
He did have a couple of nice plays. He was looking more aggressive, both with his legs and with his arm. He didn't look as gun shy as he did the previous week. He didn't look as scared, but yeah, it's still nothing like
Negative EPA on the RBSDM
yeah,
box score. I'm not.
It's nothing. It's nothing crazy. It was just like he looked a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more aggressive. But the story, like what won this game for the Browns, defense was immaculate, and then Bojorquez hit an amazing punt, just a total nutso punt, bounced at the 2, went out, just straight like it bounced and it just went sideways out of bounds. I'm
nice.
like, dude, could not have asked for a better punt. And then we immediately got a safety after that and got the ball back. And that was pretty much that was game, like pretty much after that. So defense played great. Bojorquez had a nice punt. Can't ask for much more from the Browns. And that's how the Browns are going to have to win games, because if we're not going to be, if we can't score more than
elite
20
punting.
Points, punting. No, I was texting Zach, bro. He was like, first punter to win MVP? Question mark. It's just like, yeah, if you can't score more than 20 points in a game, the defense is going to be what you're going to need to pull through for you.
I
so
agree.
that's where we stand right now. The run game was all right. Ford had a couple of nice plays. Shout out Cincinnati legend. Deonta Foreman was okay, but they got stuffed a couple of times. We're still just waiting for Nick Chubb to get back, really, truly. It's the defense, man. They're just so good. I saw a rumor that like Garrett might not play, but like he was never questionable or anything. So I don't know where that came from.
He had a sack fumble.
Yeah, man, he did.
Second game in a row that's happened for him.
He's great.
Pretty good pace to be at.
Yeah. Him and Watt are both kind of wrecking right now. Watt maybe more so. I see him like have multiple highlights like every single week. It's looking like a possible defensive player of the year season for him again.
I didn't see any of the Steelers game today, but he was pretty dominant last week. Yeah. But there's another game I want to talk about from this window. The Vikings. They beat the 49ers.
We didn't talk about the Vikings at all last week. Vikings fans were very upset.
They got to listen to your football opinion with Theo Ash, because sometimes I get to games that we don't talk about here on Stay Hot. The Vikings were one of them, and I watched them on Thursday, and I watched their defense, and I was extremely impressed, even though it was just against the Giants. I thought Flores it looked great. Like they were playing. Let me start over. They looked good against the Giants last week, and then today was a masterclass by Flores. Flores took away the run as best he could on early downs, getting in that 3-4 bear front a lot of the time and asking him like, hey, if you want to lean on Jordan Mason and run it in this game, like you're going to have to do it on our best personnel for it. And then in passing situations, he'd go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum and like really lighten the box, play dime, do whatever he had to do. And just those wild fluctuations, like kind of going all in on the best look for the down and distance, I thought paid some real dividends for him in this one.
Yeah.
I personally did not catch much of this one either. I was locked in on Saints Cowboys
Okay.
with my mouth agape. But I'm happy to hear that Darnold is doing his thing. From what I've watched, I did go back and watch him last week. It's kind of what we've expected. He's not perfect. He's a little prone to mistakes and to trusting himself too much. But honestly, I will take that over a guy who doesn't trust himself that much, because at the end of the day, Darnold is at least decisive, right or wrong, and he has a big arm and can hit any throw. And when you're on an offense that has a lot of receivers that are winning and has a lot of weapons that can get work done, that honestly is going to be good enough 80% of the time. And so far, it clearly has been.
Especially when, no doubt about it, and especially when Brian Flores turns into Bill Belichick. Like he has just been lights out. It really does remind me of. It reminds me of he's from the Patriots tree, from the Belichick trade, but yeah, exactly. And it's so smart. I thought that this game plan was just immaculate. I thought the people who needed to be bracketed were bracketed. I thought every situational call was good. It looked like everybody knew what they were doing. They play their zone coverage and they're just elite at it. They've got eyes on Purdy, right? It's not all the man match stuff where you're like, it's turning into man after a time. It really does feel like they're just kind of getting out into this umbrella. They're protecting their corners, like playing quarters, letting them play with outside leverage and forcing everything inside to Bynum and Harrison Smith and Metellus and Pace and Cashman and Andrew Van Ginkel dropping and Dallas Turner dropping, and like who knows who's going to be doing what on it. Like, you know what the corners are going to be doing? They're kind of rooks just moving kind of north and south along the sideline, right? And not really being asked to chase Debo around on a crosser, which is good. They're protecting Gilmore. They're protecting the weakness and funneling everything in towards their strengths, calling a really good game, being really disruptive, reading Purdy and Daniel Jones perfectly. Like, they're not 100% successful against the run all the time. They're not 100% successful when they just have to rush for and get pressure on their own. They're not like the greatest at that yet in their front, but it's tough to throw the ball against this team.
Of, like, they just don't have the talent at that point yet.
Right. This team still could get way better, which is kind of scary. Yes. But like, if they keep Flores as the defensive coordinator, like maybe I thought he would get blackballed forever, honestly. Like, after suing the league, it just didn't seem, but he's playing so well. Like, I think another team has to take a chance on Flores right now. Maybe if they can keep him though and fix everything, like he's got a chance to be a special defensive coordinator. Well,
yeah,
or head coach. He already is. You know what I mean.
I think he's definitely called the perfect way to stop San Francisco. They love to hit their crossers and they love to attack the middle of the field, and that'll crush a lot of man coverage teams. But yeah, if you're just like, we're gonna force Purdy to manipulate us with his eyes. But here's the thing: is we already know what he wants to do, right? So there isn't really any like eye candy to fall for. I think that like you said, force everything inside to your premier defenders. Yeah, man.
Yeah, and
that's how you
I
want
think
to play them.
the way that you needed to beat this was like outbreakers, like get outside the numbers, make it a one-on-one with the corner. They got to some comeback routes kind of late, I thought, where you just kind of started spamming comeback routes over Gilmore, who's dropping into a quarters coverage, and just throw it in front of him and see if he can break on it. I thought they got to that towards the end, but it was just a little bit too little too late. And some crazy stuff happened in this game. Purdy, the ball slipped out of his hands and was picked by a lineman. There was a blocked punt. They needed a little bit of luck to go their way, but they also were very unlucky. Like Jefferson missed the second half and Addison missed the whole game, and their defense was good enough and Darnold gave them enough that they were able to win pretty easily, all things considered, although there were some scary moments kind of towards the end, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're hoping Jefferson's day-to-day is what I'm hearing. But, yeah, they would need him pretty badly to... That would be if he's out for a few weeks, that would be concerning. Would be the only thing. But yeah, right now, like you said, Theo, they can get way better. And they're already 2-0. Another team that we were counting out, but they look pretty freaking good. But, Matt, let's talk about Dallas and New Orleans. New Orleans gets a huge win. Just shredded the Dallas Cowboys. Derek Carr looks like the greatest quarterback of all time. Future Cleveland Browns legend Derek Carr. Imagine, let's stop and think for a second. Imagine if they had signed Derek Carr all those years ago instead of Watson.
I think we're overestimating a little bit of how much of this is Derek Carr at the moment, is what he completed 11 passes. You know what I mean?
They were the greatest passes of all time.
And one was like a 50-yard screen. I'm not going to lie to you. Not that Carr is playing bad or anything. I just don't think that's what's driving their offense right now. Yeah. I think it's a couple of things. Number one is the Saints went from like the least creative offense to the most creative offense, like in one off season. I think their motion rate was like dead last or near dead last year. Now it's incredibly high. They like to move guys around, see what you're giving them, make you guard as many different things as possible, and stretch you both horizontally and vertically. On top of that, they're willing to put anybody anywhere. Obviously, they have Taysom Hill, who makes that really easy because he can line up at quarterback or wide receiver or running back or as a gunner or as a punter or whatever the hell you want. But they do that like Shaheed was lining up as a running back. They can move Kamara around a ton. Like, they have a ton of options, and that just allows them to get to different stuff in a lot of different ways. And it allows them to attack a lot of different parts of the field. I mean, the Cowboys' run defense already is kind of a weakness, kind of soft. And when the Saints, get going, they'd be running, gashing them outside a little bit, and then the Cowboys would commit so hard that they'd hit him with the play action, and it'd be easy pickings for Carr. They like to hit some delayed screens that were successful for them. But on top of that, they can still get you deep because Shaheed's been fantastic this year, and they have Olave. So there's just so much that you have to cover that maybe even if they don't have a 1A superstar on that offense, which they don't, they're still really, really difficult to deal with. I almost think about it like basketball. It's like if you have every single counter move in your arsenal when you're dribbling against somebody one-on-one, that might be harder to guard than somebody who just has one freakish superpower that is tough to stop. That's how the Saints feel right now. Now, to be fair, I do think that the Cowboys' defense, while good, is prone to giving up games like this. And the Panthers' defense is just awful. So we should see a little bit more of this before we assume the Saints are going to put up 40 points every single game. But, I mean, there was no way that I expected them to do this in the first two games. I think this is totally insane. This is the single biggest surprise of the season to me by a lot.
who could have predicted?
You did not predict the Saints offense to be like this. You predicted them to be a great defense. No.
I put the Cowboys on upset watch. You know, I said they'd win 10 games. I said
I don't think one person called this.
I said this offensive line is perfect for the Shanahan system that Kubiak will bring in. Trevor Penning, Ramczyk gets hurt, right? But Trevor Penning is the guy that you want as the tip of your spear running your wide zone. Fuaga as well on the other side. Ruiz, McCoy, I think it's Lucas Patrick coming from the Packers. All fit here and make highlights as well. I didn't think they'd be this good, but I'm victory. I'm going to take it. I thought.
Okay, should we talk about the Cowboys then?
Yes.
Well,
when I said that the Saints would potentially upset them, I got a lot of people saying, "Well, Dan Quinn isn't around this year, so they're not going to struggle with the Shanahan playbooks anymore. We got somebody different." And it's like your front seven is still the same, though. Like, Fuaga's still getting up on your linebacker, and your linebacker's trash. Like, it does. I don't care what Zimmer calls. The Saints are going to run wide zone, and they're going to get up on you, and they're going to block it. Like, it doesn't matter what you call. They know what to do. So, no, I shouldn't be too smug, but yeah, I am surprised that it is this effective right now.
And Kamara.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude! Kamara has
that
been.
Surprises me the most.
That shocks me. I won't lie.
He's so back.
But if you tweet me about it on Twitter, I'm saying it's luck. By the way, all Saints fans. So don't even bother, man. It's not worth it.
Fuaga got lucky. Lucky block. Lucky movement.
No, and really that's a lot of it too. It's just having an offensive line like that can generate so much power. It's like you have to commit so hard to whatever they're doing, and they've just had the perfect mix of counters to that. It's been great to watch. On top of that, their secondary, Alante Taylor is a playmaker. Tyrann Mathieu has been good for a long time now. I was thinking about his longevity. What is this, season 11 for him? And he had a pretty fantastic interception. And this was without Lattimore today.
Last week too.
Yeah, this was without Lattimore today. I mean, their defense is pretty darn good. And it's not like the Cowboys are able to run the ball, although Zach Martin went out at one point, so maybe that affected it somewhat. But I don't think they were running the ball that well at any point. This Saints team feels pretty complete. I wonder what their ceiling is as a team. Like, I wonder if this works this well against everybody. I still want to see more. And it's like Carr is just too inconsistent.
His footwork is bad. I think I watched his Panthers game pretty closely. Like, he put up crazy numbers there too. And I'm like, okay, he's still not really someone who's liking to step up here. He kind of would hit the top of his drop and not set his feet and just kind of whip it down there. And I don't think his confidence, when the defenses get a little bit tougher, and again, I think you're right, Matt, that it is predictable that the Cowboys struggled against this team specifically. And even though the Cowboys defense is extremely good and looked extremely good last week, in this exact system against that team, there are tougher matchups that he'll have to face because
and there were a few times today, I think there was one time play action, he's rolling out, there's a throw there, but it's not an easy window. It's not a deep shot. It's something that he has to hit sort of on the move, down the field, where if you don't hit him right, it could be an interception. And he just decided not to throw it and run for 2 yards. Now, they were up huge at the time, so maybe that was just why would I even bother? But at a point, he's not going to be able to make that decision, or he's not, that decision isn't going to fly. So we'll see. But the fact that we're even talking about the Saints like they are, what is their ceiling, I think speaks super highly on them. I was definitely wrong about them. You were more right about them, Theo. Unless their luck wears off here in the next 15 games.
Don't worry. When they play Tampa Bay on October 13th, we'll get the battle of future Cleveland Browns legend Derek Carr and former Cleveland Browns legend Baker Mayfield.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think We'll see how long they can keep it up. Right now, they have the lowest pass rate in the league. I think like 36% of their calls have been passes so far this year. That's not going to sustain over the course of the entire year. That'll probably have to get about. Maybe they could get away with low 40s, but for it to be below 40 right now, like that is so much success on the ground that it just won't always be there. And they'll have it, and then Penning will have to pass protect. Like not only can Carr fold, but the offensive line can be worse if they're going backwards. But so far, the offense have gotten off to such hot starts and just dominated on the ground to such an extent that they haven't had to do it. We'll see what the team looks like when they do, but the defense looks very sustainable. They were good last year, and the run game will always be probably above average, or if not one of the best in the league. So, they are. I'm feeling good about that pick. Less good about the Dolphins, but at least one of my hot takes.
Oh, that's how it goes.
You're not going to get everything right.
It was kind of a rough game for Dallas. They settled for a lot of field goals, and that took them out. We've already talked about their defense. And then once they got down, it was like really pressing the issue. And Dak threw a couple of interceptions. I also thought that the secondary was just tough to throw against, and Dallas had to check it down a little bit more. And then they weren't creating a lot of push in the run game. But
yeah, it's kind of a good matchup for the Saints because Dallas can't really run the ball particularly well. But
if we want to move on to, Bengals Chiefs.
Bengals Chiefs. You don't get everything right, but Mac got one of his locks so far right. The Chiefs to beat the Bengals. It was close, though. Came down to it. Should we address the elephant in the room? Mahomes
it was pass interference. It was a perfectly fine call. Just ridiculous. Just so annoying. Look, the reason why the Chiefs always seem like they get bailed out is because they win so much. And when they win, you notice and you remember the breaks that they got. It's the same reason why the Patriots seem so lucky. The Patriots really weren't so lucky. Brady really wasn't so, well, maybe Brady was lucky in the sense that he landed in a good situation. Same with Mahomes, and that matters. But like, things break against the Chiefs all the time. In that game, or things break against Mahomes all the time. In that game, Mahomes completes a 20-yard pass to put them in field goal range, and it's called back because Kingsley can't deal with Hendrickson. Can't do it. Could not guard him. That wasn't good luck for Mahomes. Now it's 4th and 16. So the next play, when he gets a flag to go his way, like I don't know, dude. Like I feel like that's just how it goes, man. And when they win a lot, you're going to remember their good breaks a lot. I really don't think this was some ultimate bail. And as far as that particular pass interference goes, the problem is that it was like full body contact on a player who was not moving. Like there is no way you can't call that because it's just so blatant and so obvious. It's one thing if like it was a slant or something and they hit the receiver's arm right before the ball got there, like a microsecond, and they called that because they let that stuff go all of the time, and they should. But when it's sort of a jump ball situation and you come and slam into a guy with your foot, like, sorry, man, it wasn't even close. You have to make that call. I know it's frustrating. I know it sucked, but yeah, any team is getting that call. I truly do believe.
So
right, it happens, and it's frustrating overall because I thought the Bengals played a really good game. They just made some key mistakes. I mean, if you want to go beat the Chiefs, you can't fumble and give up a scoop and score right after you get one of the best interceptions I've ever seen from Cam Taylor-Britt with the Odell catch, they were calling it. And he talked all his trash then to do that and to have that play and just to give it right back up. Even though Burrow played, I thought, a pretty decent game overall and looked a lot better. You can't afford that. You can't afford the pass interference, and you can't afford missing an extra point in a 1-point game.
Yeah, I thought that this is kind of a weird game for me because they obviously played well to make it a game against the Chiefs, and that is commendable. I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to do that after they lost to the Patriots last week. So the fact that they were, and they made some plays on defense, like some real great plays on defense, was encouraging. But on the offensive side of the football, I continue to be a little bit underwhelmed. I won't be whelmed again until I see a Jamar Chase shot up the sideline. Where did they go?
Fair.
I will not be moved by the Bengals until he gets targeted down the field. He has been targeted twice in 2 weeks, more than 6 or more yards down the field, more than 5. 2 times he's been targeted more than 5 yards down the field. That is crazy to me. You got to find a way to make him more explosive, because you got really nothing down the field. He was locked up on a potential touchdown by McDuffie. He was crashing out on the sideline because of no reason. Like, McDuffie tackled him. He didn't even hit the ground, and he wanted a hip drop and like got a dumbass penalty and was like freaking out about it. It's like,
and Burrow went over there to like pull him off, and like he was pissed at Burrow for doing that. And it's just like, dude, this one is just on you, man. I don't know what to tell you. They did hit one deep shot to Burton. That was a great play. But I totally agree. I mean, you think about what makes this Cincinnati team special over the last, 2-3 years, and none of it's here right now. We're not seeing any of it, particularly with the chase and, hopefully with the, his name is slipping me, the Clemson. I don't know. Higgins, deep shots. They're just, I don't.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute.
Plus, he went to Clemson.
So to not see any of that wasn't great. I thought Burrow played a better game. I thought there was more creation out of him that I liked. And overall, like, I think his statistics ended up being pretty decent, despite maybe not hitting, Chase super deep. But yeah, I mean, I think really a lot of what was impressive out of them is how they were able to limit Mahomes. A lot of that came down to Hendrickson, just absolutely unguardable. At least Kingsley, absolute liability, absolutely terrible. I think he gave up 2 sacks and probably like 5 pressures and probably multiple like hands to the face penalties, it feels like, and I don't even know what all. He just couldn't guard him or hold him at all. And when the Bengals are able to, play conservative like they want to against Mahomes and still get pressure because Kingsley is that bad, it was one of Mahomes' like least productive games probably ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something we talked about in our preseason analysis of the Chiefs, is the tackle play. Something that's came to rear its head in this game. I do wonder, though, if the lack of Higgins is impacting the deep balls to Chase, because now you don't need necessarily to run. You don't have to put a roof on things. You could almost just go single high and just shade over to Jamar now. And I guess that would be something that you'd have to check the all-22 to know for sure, like what is happening on a down basis, but that would be something that would come to mind.
Yeah, I'll have to check the film on exactly how they were treating him. I know McDuffie was following him around. He certainly will get a lot of safety help. Yeah. He did last week. He's Jamar Chase, but still, I think like a third of his route should be goes. I think that should be just a massive part of his diet. And right now he's at like 8% go balls. Back in the day, it was definitely closer to it was definitely closer to a third of the time. I think for the elite wide receivers, it should be pretty balanced between like routes under 10 yards, short, intermediate, 10 to 20, and deep. It should be pretty balanced right now. It's not with Chase. It's like he's holding attention underneath. He's just standing there so he can catch it and run. Not blaming Burrow for it necessarily, but someone's got to.
Someone's got to like call.
Someone's got to call him. He's got to call his own number. I don't know. I'm not that scared of the Bengals without him being like a massive deep threat down the sideline. So,
yeah, the two teams that we, that seem to get commonly projected at the top of this division. Both are 0-2 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Browns are 1-1. Steelers are 2-0 with Justin Fields.
Yeah,
I didn't catch that one, but shout out to him. I heard. I apologize.
I feel at some point I'm gonna have to watch a Steelers game.
I heard it was a gritty, scrappy win. Shout out to them. My gut tells me, my analysis without watching is that this was a Steelers classic, and that this is. A very typical. I'm seeing 13-6. I'm seeing.
I didn't even
Bo
know
Nix
that
with
was
two
the final score of the game.
Was the
I did
13
not.
to 6. Bo Nix had 2 interceptions, got sacked twice. He was also the leading rusher, 4 carries, 25 yards.
Ugh.
It's just disgusting work, man.
Sean Payton fleeced the Vikings,
Javonte
though.
Williams fall off breaks my heart.
Yes. Wins, losses. How about how many day 3 picks you costed the Vikings?
That is always the funniest. That's one of the funniest things ever, just because the idea of them fleecing the Vikings, but the Jets getting a fleece, like, how does that impact the Broncos? Like, two teams that the Jets are arguably more of a threat, and the Vikings are just as irrelevant. Like, one team's loss is another's gain, and both of those teams have the same relationship with you. They're not in your division. They have nothing to do with you. It's what was he talking about? We wanted Bo Nix all along. Like, what? I don't know.
Fleeced. Got him.
But
well, before we get into Bears Texans, I'll give one more quick shout out. Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. Oh my God, just absolutely nasty. The Marvin Harrison having like 2 amazing plays within the first 10 minutes of football was just so beautiful. It was just like we see almost none of him in week 1, and then immediately out the gate in week 2, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, here's this receiver that we drafted who's awesome. Just thought we'd remind you that we have him. And then Kyler, I mean, definitely a top 10 quarterback. And any conversation that he wasn't coming into the season was probably just like misremembering.
I think
he's looked so. The fact that he can extend plays for as long as he does, and just completely break coverages, because I mean you just can't cover for 7, 8, 9 seconds in a given play, and the fact that he's able to buy so much time and then throw an accurate ball, like fading left, it's just ridiculous. It's really funny to think about, like. You see Kyler out there, and then you see Bryce Young, who are like the same size, and how they operate. But yeah, Kyler's a freak. He's just so good.
He's a monster. I mean, he was great today. I didn't watch much of this one, but I was glad to see Marv do well. I thought it was somewhat predictable. The Bills, especially after Thursday night, I was like, okay, the Bills defense is just like good at taking receivers away at this point.
Right.
And yeah, Kyler, I don't know if I don't know if I'll put him definitely top 10 after this game.
He might be, man.
But like, if some other guys kind of fall off and Kyler has this kind of season, like, yeah, he's definitely working his way back into that.
And James Conner continues to rule.
He's a beast. He's underrated.
He is.
And the Rams?
I mean, the receivers are banged up, and the defense isn't particularly good. And Stafford's just kind of fighting for his life. What were your thoughts on, like, Stafford playing, like, the end of that game? Did you...
I don't know.
I thought he was. I didn't see it. I didn't know that. I'm saying he's a brave warrior. And
well, it was. If I remember correctly, he got taken out of the game because they were down, or like they were gonna take him out of the game because he got sacked 5 times. Both of his receivers were out. Like Cooper Kupp left the game. Puka was already out. They were down like 30, and they're walking Stafford back out there. Like, what is... People were just questioning, like, what was the point in doing that?
Well, I know Jimmy G is suspended, and the backup after Stafford is Stetson Bennett, who is probably just not... Like, they didn't want to see him out there even for one single snap is probably my guess.
Like, I don't know. It's just like your 2 best receivers are already hurt. Like, maybe don't risk anything. I don't... That was just that's the dialogue.
It's 100% worth question. I'm just thinking about who the backup is, really.
Yeah.
So
it's like you're down 30. both your starting receivers are hurt.
Oh yeah,
Right.
definitely fair to be like they should bench him, but I just wonder if they were like maybe we don't want a 60 piece hung up on us. Maybe that was what they were thinking.
You don't want to throw like back-to-back pick sixes or
You're trying to help out your defense, right? Like if we put Stafford out there, there's a chance we sustain a drive. Whereas if we don't, it will literally be like 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and our defense will like break going forward. Like
that's
was their
actually
mentality.
a fair point. A little bit of give and take there.
But I don't know.
Okay, that's fair. Well, let's talk about Sunday Night Football. Bears, Texans. Looking forward to this one. You know, after week 1, a lot of questions up in the air about Caleb Williams. He didn't look so hot, but also he was under pressure a ton. The same was true tonight. And honestly, so was Stroud. Both defensive lines were getting after it. A lot of pressure on both sides, a lot of sacks on both sides, a lot of good defense on both sides. With that being said, there was a clear difference in the quarterback play. Stroud looks like very clearly a top 5 quarterback in football. Hit some absolutely nutty throws. Had some great plays outside of structure, escaping the pocket. Caleb Williams, on the other hand, sometimes it feels like he's almost trying to do too much. And it just never works for him, it feels like. So I'm interested to hear, we'll start with the Bears side of things. Matt, I know you were saying in the group chat a little bit, it's where do you want to place the blame because the offensive line's getting crushed, but also like Caleb isn't doing a whole lot when things break down.
Right. I mean, I think we can analyze this a little bit more than say the offensive line played bad and he's a rookie and throw our hands up. I mean, that happens for absolutely everybody. Now, don't get me wrong. The offensive line was not only atrocious, but atrocious and a really tough way to deal with. When the interior of the offensive line is losing as consistently and as badly as Chicago's was, it makes the creation process a lot harder. You can deal with pressure around the edges much easier than you can deal with pressure up the middle. And for a lot of this, it felt like Caleb at times didn't have anywhere to go because if he's getting pressured up the center, he's got to try to get all the way back out around if he wants to escape, and that's difficult to do. That being said, there's a lot of plays where Caleb would get pressured and freeze up a little bit more than we want, or Caleb would run around and it would be so much effort for him to try to escape that he couldn't keep his eyes downfield. And I think a lot of what we liked about him at USC is that he was able to keep his eyes downfield and make a play. And then oftentimes he was kind of just missing throws. He wasn't hitting a lot of the stuff that he typically hits. And really, I think the accuracy is the number one concern right now. DJ Moore at the end of the game was frustrated, obviously. If Caleb's going to be, the guy that we've built him to be, and I think he should be, he's going to have to just hit more of these shots than he is right now. I'm not in total panic mode. There were some good plays, of course, but I don't know if Chicago's offensive line is going to be anything other than really bad this year, and I think it's going to be tough sledding for him going forward for the rest of the season, when the expectation, I think rightfully, was that it wasn't going to be like this, that they were going to be a little bit further along a little bit more quickly.
I think tonight was kind of a disaster for Chicago, I think. And I'm not saying that Caleb can never turn it around, but this was a brutal one to just watch and experience. And it felt like they were lucky to have him out of there without an injury. I mean, he was getting teed off on at the end of the game.
7 sacks.
Huge contact. Like, and more out of bounds and more down the field, and like after he released the ball, it just felt like a huge amount of hits to be taken. Like it was completely untenable. If they look like this for even 2 more weeks, Caleb will get hurt. If he takes that amount of big hits and that amount of contact and those amount of awkward positions, like he will be hurt by by Halloween.
And
Definitely.
they don't play like a bunch of weak defensive lines coming up, like
And
Colts,
Matt,
Rams.
I'll ask you this. It does it remind you of Bryce Young?
Hey, now. Yes, it does. The way that the offensive line was collapsing reminds me of last year, and the way that Caleb tries to deal with it reminds me a lot. I think the key thing here is if you're going to have the terrible O-line, what do you need to do if you're Chicago? You have to shift gears and you have to get the ball out quickly. But that's not what they want to do because they have these great playmaking receivers and they have Caleb Williams. So the idea is actually we're not going to get the ball out that quickly. Like we're going to go crazy and we're gonna have maybe some bigger stuff drawn up. But I just don't think that that's sustainable. And on the top of that, like throws over the middle were lacking today, and a lot of these throws were like pretty rough misses. And I definitely see some of the similarities. Now I think more hope for Caleb than I do for Bryce because I think Caleb is a better athlete. But certainly I see where you're coming from, although what Bryce did today is far and away worse than what Caleb did.
I think that's fair, but
it's
it's worth noting, Matt. Like, yes, that's another the Panthers, the Bears' game plan going into this also needs to be questioned. Like the fact that their offensive line is getting crushed as much as it is, and they just have no alternative other than. Well, I get it's like DJ Moore down there somewhere, Roma Dunze out there somewhere. I would be curious as to see like what is their current like passing chart looking like or their route chart looking like, because I'm guessing it's not particularly great. And I'm guessing if we look at the all-22, the number of receivers we see down the field is higher.
Well, they didn't complete a deep pass all game. They didn't complete anything close to deep all game. I think
they probably didn't complete any of them. But you have to wonder,
it was rough.
You have to wonder.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, like, problem number one is that they can't run the ball. Like,
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Okay,
right. They're very limited in what they can game plan because it is just all like Caleb drop back and will either spit it out quickly and just ignore the offensive line, right, or will pass it and we'll hope Caleb does something wonderful. But what would have helped him tonight was like, oh, what if we just could get under center and like hand it off and sustain a drive that way? Like that's the easiest thing that you could do to help your quarterback out is like just let him hand it off. That's the easiest thing that he could do. They can't do it at all. Like Swift is a horrible lead back. Mm-hmm. Your offensive line is terrible. So when your best 11 are on the field, it's so heavily skewed towards we need to pass, and then. Yeah, I asked if he reminded you of Bryce Young. I know the answer. It's yes. You saw this insane and like intangible ability to create plays in college. It was so good that I was thinking, like in both cases, that's like it's so good that it will translate. Like weaving around defenders, like keeping himself afloat, like. Accuracy on the move, it's all still gonna be there. Like he's still gonna be able to break tackles, and I feel like in this game we did see him like break a lot of tackles in the pocket, but then he rolls out and there's just nothing. There's nothing like none of it is there.
Yeah, and you can go 3 for 4 on breaking tackles in a play. You're still sacked, unfortunately.
Exactly. So yeah, it does. It is starting to concern. It's definitely concerning me of my evaluation of him being. Like QB1 over May and like this generational prospect, it is knocking my opinion down, but my expectation was so high that I still like have expectations, that in the future he's not Bryce Young, that he is a better athlete, that they can stabilize things. But right now it's completely not functional. The Bears and the Panthers swapped a bunch of picks to look the exact same.
Yeah, I tweeted out kind of as a troll. Well, first off, 2 things. Number one, you texted Bryce Williams in the group chat multiple times for those listening at home. So
no. This is so funny because we get at 8:42 Theo Ash, Bryce Williams. Matt says brutal. The offensive line loses so badly. I don't know how much to blame him. Theo Ash replies, Bryce Williams, in my opinion.
It looked the same. It looked like all the same struggles that we had with Bryce, where it's like, he's trying to create, he just kind of can't stay accurate or ward people off to the level that he needs to. But
But again, they can't run the ball, and they can't run the ball. The interior of the offensive line is a joke.
Getsy's not doing a good job, I think.
Honestly, it feels like last year's Chargers team a little bit.
No, because Herbert is doing all he. It's not.
That's
his
true.
fault.
That's true. But in terms of what the team around him, this would be like if Herbert's rookie year. But even Herbert's rookie year, he was awesome. So I don't know.
Even Herbert, and his line sucked. I mean, we can say that. I mean, Herbert, his offensive line was the worst in football that year. You can look at all the ranks. They were
first 2 games
30th. Awesome. He came in and was immediately fantastic, and his receiving core was. I mean, I don't think this receiving core has ended up being as good as people thought, because Keenan is already hurt, and Rome doesn't seem to be on the same page with Caleb. But going into this year, you would say that this is the best situation a first overall pick has ever walked into. I definitely think if we're comparing him to some of the previous guys like Herbert, he's walking into a situation that is kind of similar to what a guy like Herbert walked into and looked a lot better. So I expected more. I mean, even with the offensive line looking like this, I expected more, but it's not.
And I think it's especially notable that when you look at the other side, Stroud faced probably just as much pressure, got sacked 3 times, but the number of plays where Stroud was able to evade pressure, he had one play where free rusher came in and he immediately bolted out and found a receiver downfield, and it's just complete night and day difference in how they manage negative situations in the pocket. Stroud just looks totally composed, like he's always on the same page with Nico Collins, and there was one throw he made that ended up getting dropped by Tank Dell that he just kind of floated over a trailing defender. I'm like, dude. This is what you would expect from Caleb Williams. Right?
I think what's scary about it is that Caleb didn't look good when the ball was out of his hands. You know what I mean? When the ball left his hand, it wasn't okay, at least we got that.
Yeah.
If it was just before, when he had the ball and when he was dealing with the pressure, it'd be all right, maybe the offensive line is just that bad. We think he can get better. But the throws themselves were tough, and it looked like some college-y stuff that just wasn't going to fly in the NFL. That's how it looked on a few of these plays. On the interception he had, it was really rough, man. It's that wasn't even close, dude. That wasn't going to be open if you had another step or two, right? And I'm not out on Caleb. I do think he has a lot of advantages over Bryce. He's faster and he's got a bigger arm, and I think that makes it a lot easier for him in the future to develop more of an answer against pressure and more of an answer as a creator. Because I think a lot of Bryce's problem, like I've said, is that he just has to work so hard, and maybe part of the problem is that Caleb is working so hard. When he's out of the pocket, because he's getting so much pressure. But at the same time, you have to recognize the things not looking good right away are never a good sign. It is always a negative, and there are real problems with Caleb. And while he's young, that doesn't mean that they're not real problems, and that doesn't guarantee that they're going to get solved. And when I see people go out and say everybody's expectations for rookie quarterbacks are just too damn high, if that's the statements that people are dropping after watching your young quarterback play, it's not over, but certainly that is step one. Mm-hmm. Certainly that is not a good sign, and I've heard that about probably every other first-round pick quarterback that ends up not being good. I don't think anybody was higher on Caleb than us. But as it stands right now, like I think you have to be worried after these couple of performances.
Yeah, they looked significantly worried. Like this is just me being biased for everybody out there. I get called biased whenever I talk about the Packers, but this is legitimately me doing it. They do not look like the Packers from early last season, which eventually got turned around. Love had some horrible games. The game against the Raiders comes to mind. That was not good. When we lost that one, there were some really ugly losses to bad teams, but it never looked like that was a different level of bad. Like that was a little bit.
It looks like you're not even trying real NFL shit. That's the problem. That's the difference.
It looked it looked dangerous to be a quarterback there. It looked. I was concerned for Caleb's well-being, like by the end of it, and that's just never the way you want to feel. Like, oh, they're getting their shit kicked into such a level that they'll be lucky to get out of here.
And I tweeted out before this game, I thought it might be a blowout, just because I'm like, I don't know what the Bears offense can do right now, because they can't throw the ball, they can't run the ball, and they can't run the ball so much that, like you said, Matt, the Texans just teed off on every play, because they're just like, oh yeah, they're passing, like let's go get this guy.
And
and
thank God for their secondary, man. That's what I'll say.
So, let's say some good things about the Bears. Their defense is good.
Their secondary can exist and really make things tough. It's definitely not an easy defense to solve because of the safeties and the corners and Kyler Gordon in the slot and TJ Edwards and that everybody there is a star, but still, didn't do enough to win, I guess, like they did last week. And Eberflus as a coach, whatever he's giving their defense, like he might be messing up with his two horrific challenges tonight. And the fact that it was a false start every play. So it's like their defense looks great, but their defensive leader, Eberflus, still deserves as much of the blame as anybody by being like his guys looking unprepared and him making like emotional challenges that had no chance of getting overturned.
Just like the ones where he's like standing right there. It's like, dude, how did you possibly throw that one?
Yeah.
I guess if I was a Bears fan, I think my thought would be is like, it is totally possible that Williams has an adjustment period. He's somebody who is like very aggressive, and a lot of the throws that he's making would work at the college level, but maybe not the NFL. And I think he's got the arm talent to make NFL level throws. He's just got to rein that in. But it's now a tough adjustment because there's a part of this team and a part of this offense that can't function at all. It's not that it's not very good. It's that, it's going to get you hit 15 times a game. And while there certainly are Herbert situations, and while I certainly think that more franchise quarterbacks than not looked good right away, there's room for, a Trevor Lawrence. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Josh Allen,
exactly. So it's not over. It's 2 weeks into the season. Don't overreact too much. And I still think the overall, like, Adunze, I think, can come together. I think you still have two key guys at receiver. If it takes an off season and you have to go maybe Panthers mode where they're like, we don't care, we're going to invest in the offensive line and at least be decent, probably not the end of the world. So it's a lot to be done. But as it stands right now, like, definitely under expectation. There's no question about that. I think Chicago fans would agree.
Tua as well is someone who really struggled to begin his career, but then like his staff got fired and someone who played to his strengths walked in the door, and then everything got way better. And I think the way that Eberflus and Waldron have looked so far, like they're the ones on the hottest seat. Like they're the ones that might be the most over for. It's not good when a rookie comes in and then his staff is different the next year. but Caleb will get more of a chance.
It is good if their first staff was bad.
It is good, right? It's good that you can.
I've seen a lot of Bears fans say that they want Eberflus and Waldron gone, like ASAP.
I would too. After that was, I think, kind of a failure. So these like linemen who were good last year are worse now. Rookies who should be like the wide receivers just don't have any cohesion. Yeah, I think that it is fair to say that this is very much a coaching issue.
I just realized
they're more talented than
DeAndre
this.
Swift had 14 carries for 18 yards.
I remember when I had 900 quote tweets on a DeAndre Swift thread, by the way.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. That was awesome.
I went back and checked today.
I knew he didn't have a good game. 14 carries for 18 yards.
This was back when he was like, was this last year or was this 2 years ago?
This was like last year, week 3. He had the Vikings got like blown off the ball and he had 200 yards. And then I think they played, I can't remember, maybe the Steelers the next week and he had like 200 yards again. And I was like, okay, this is like, I don't know. This is not.
He was ass, but then like
And then I did some video of like he could have anticipated this whole opening. He could have pressed when he saw the like overflow from the linebackers.
Oh my God! Yes, I'm recalling. That was awesome.
I had another one where
People
I said like he cut back here when he should have just gone downhill, and it had 900 quote tweets. They were like, "How dare you!" But he shuffles his feet, gets the ball, and he shuffles his feet, and he's not that dynamic. Like he
rocked behind the Eagles and behind the Lions' offensive lines, and now he has to play behind.
He was
Chicago.
terrible behind the Lions' offensive line. To be clear,
he's
the worst running back in the league. He was the least efficient rushing. That's why I hated him in the first place. Is like, how are you behind this offensive line and you're the least efficient running back in the league?
But he's had a bizarre reputation for like his entire career, man. It really is something to watch, dude. Like, and partially because of fantasy.
He's a good if he is your passing down back, that is okay. Like he's good at catching. He's not that bad at blocking, from what I've seen recently. So like when he's out there, like, oh yeah, your passing attack is really supercharged because you've got a back who can do all these things. But you can't hand it off to him and have him be your lead guy. So what is he doing popping up as a starter and like getting all this hype all the time?
Before we get out, is there anything good or bad we want to say about Houston? We've kind of just talked about the Bears for 30 minutes.
Yes,
Their corners have crazy ball skills. Oh, you go. You talk about Nico, though.
Well, first off, if you're referencing Lassiter, man. Stingley. Those two guys, and we were talking about how they needed more defensive back help. Lassiter seems like a huge addition for them. Honestly, maybe an overreaction, but I'm starting to feel like high-end outcome for Texans is very, very, very possible. Stroud is just so good, dude. And Nico Collins, I think is going to move into very, very high-level conversations. That guy just wins. He's so strong-handed, and he's got, great speed on top of that at his size. That I don't know, man. I don't know. He was just absolutely feasting against a very good Bears secondary. They couldn't guard him. He put up 140 this game. Yeah. The way that he moves at his size and in and out of his breaks is fantastic, dude.
And he has that connection with Stroud that he's those two are just,
that's really almost a superpower. We talk about that all the time. It really, really is.
Mahomes and Kelsey.
Yeah, I mean, he was double covered at some point. One of his big plays, he was bracketed, and then he just turned around out of the bracket, and Stroud rolled right and then found him out of structure. It was very Kelsey-esque. Millions of guys have had connections with other guys out of structure, but you need it to be one of the top guys in the league or top connections in the league. And Collins and Stroud is about as good as Dak and CD at this point, right? And that's the best in the league right now, is those two. Nico and Stroud are right there, if not better. I'm taking Jefferson over Nico Collins. I'm taking CD still probably. Tyreek
Hill.
AJ
Brown I think is about the same. And then I'm taking Collins over Chase at this point.
I think that's fair.
Got to, man. I'm a huge fan of Collins. We're giving him a pass for being from Michigan. It's okay.
He's from
bro.
the Texans now.
He's from the Texans.
CJ Stroud evens it out a little bit.
There we go.
True.
It's like the Harry and Voldemort.
And no, they got a Cade Stover now, so it's a 2-on-1. One cancels out. That's a Buckeye offense, baby.
Buckeye offense, man. Go to.
Yes. Yeah, good of them to get the win tonight without Mixon. They couldn't really run it as well, and defense made it tough outside of Nico Collins. There wasn't too much going on. So, but
yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
And that's it. Look at that. Longer episode for you guys, but I'm a sleepy boy, and you're gonna have to live with it not being a 2.5 hour episode so we can talk about every single game. But just like we did last week, we'll make sure that we hit on some of the games that we missed on this episode. In that one, we'll chat it up. Let us know in the comments which games you want us to talk about, but we'll figure out a few that we're interested in. You know, if we didn't get to watch them, we'll go ahead and watch them. Maybe rewatch some of the ones on All 22 that we got to look at briefly. And until then, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the flippity flop.